She was called manipulative, a traitor, and the most dangerous woman in Rome. Wife of Emperor Claudius, Messalina was not just an empress. She was a symbol of ambition and decadence. But what led a woman at the height of power to risk everything in a dangerous struggle that would end in her destruction? At the heart of the imperial court, where alliances were forged and broken in the blink of an eye, Messalina stood out as a figure of unparalleled power. While Claudius ruled as a hesitant leader, she maneuvered in the shadows, eliminating enemies and consolidating her control. But Rome's political game was ruthless. When Messalina decided to take a daring risk in a conspiracy, she made the fatal mistake of challenging those who would not forgive. Imagine living in a world where betrayal lurks at every banquet, and a single wrong word could cost you your life. Ambitious and shrewd, Messalina used everything she had: charm, intelligence, and power to shape Rome's destiny. But in the end, her own weapons turned against her. Her story is a harsh lesson. In Rome, power could be seized but never secured. What lines did Messalina cross to ensure her position? What drove the most powerful empress of the empire to openly defy Rome? And why was her fall so quick and brutal? More than just a story of betrayal, Messalina's journey reveals the deadly power games that shaped the empire's fate. In today's video, we'll explore the rise and fall of Messalina, the secret conspiracies, calculated betrayals, and the mistakes that sealed her fate. We'll understand how the most powerful woman of her time fell from grace, and the impact of her fall on the throne of Rome. If you enjoy stories of ambition, power, and conspiracy in the Roman Empire, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we dive into the behind-the-scenes of the greatest empire in history, revealing secrets that still echo through the centuries. Let's unearth Rome's past together. Messalina's name is often synonymous with scandal and decadence. But who was she before history turned her into a villain? Born into a powerful Roman family, Valeria Messalina grew up in a world where survival meant understanding politics before understanding life itself. Her family connections tied her to emperors and generals, exposing her early on to the ruthless games of power. By age 15, she was married to Claudius, an older man who was seen as weak, clumsy, and easily manipulated. To most, this seemed like a mismatched union. Yet, for Messalina, it was an opportunity to navigate the turbulent currents of imperial Rome, where alliances shifted overnight, and a single mistake could mean ruin. Behind the scenes, Messalina quickly learned how to play the role society demanded of her. On the surface, she was the young wife of an emperor, loyal and graceful. But beneath that veneer was a keen strategist, someone who recognized that the real power in Rome often lay not with the emperor himself, but with those who influenced his decisions. Claudius, though underestimated, was a gateway for her ambitions. This was not just about personal gain. Messalina knew her survival, and that of her children, depended on her ability to dominate the imperial court. The price of failure, after all, was death. Yet how did Messalina manage to rise so quickly in a male-dominated empire? Her charm and intelligence became her sharpest weapons. She manipulated friendships, eliminated threats, and controlled the flow of information to Claudius. Many admired her from afar, unaware that the same woman they celebrated for her beauty could dismantle an opponent with a few whispered words. But this was not a game she could play forever without risk. The deeper she delved into Rome's cutthroat politics, the more enemies she made, and her power became a double-edged sword. As Messalina consolidated her influence, her actions started to draw suspicion and whispers of rebellion. Was she a dangerous manipulator, as her critics claimed, or simply a product of a system that demanded cruelty for survival? This question would grow louder as her contradictions began to reveal themselves, and her most daring choices would soon challenge everything Rome thought it knew about her. But what were these contradictions, and how did they seal her fate? Messalina was both a queen of contradictions and a mirror of imperial Rome. She was accused of living a life of excess and indulgence, yet every move she made seemed deliberate and calculated. While historians painted her as a reckless woman consumed by personal desires, Others argue that her ambitions were driven by the need to secure her position in a court that was anything but stable. Rome itself was a paradox, a civilization defined by art, law, and military dominance, yet consumed by corruption and betrayal. In many ways, Messalina embodied both its glory and its darkness. Her relationship with Claudius is perhaps the most curious contradiction of all. On one hand, Claudius appeared utterly dependent on her, a puppet to her influence. Yet on the other, their dynamic was symbiotic. Messalina gave Claudius the image of a strong, stable family, essential for his legitimacy as emperor. In return, she gained a platform to wield power in ways few women could ever dream of. But how far was too far? The line between loyalty and ambition was dangerously thin, and Messalina's critics claim she crossed it again and again. For every story of her cruelty, there are tales of her cunning. She orchestrated the deaths of rivals and seized property from those who dared oppose her. But she also showed moments of surprising vulnerability. She was a mother who fiercely protected her children, positioning them for future power. This softer side, however, did little to redeem her in the eyes of those she crushed. Rome was not a city that forgave strong women. It was a city that devoured them. As whispers of her affairs and conspiracies spread, Messalina found herself in a precarious position. Her calculated moves began to look reckless. Her careful image became harder to maintain, and her enemies waited for the right moment to strike. The moment came when she made one bold, irreversible decision, one that would turn the tide against her. But what exactly was this decision, and why did she believe she could get away with it? At the height of her influence, Messalina made a move so daring that even her closest allies were left stunned. In a secret ceremony, she allegedly married Gaius Silius, one of Rome's most prominent men. To some, this act was the ultimate betrayal, proof that she planned to dethrone Claudius and install Silius as emperor. To others, it was a desperate attempt to consolidate power and protect her children's future. Either way, it was an act that could not go unnoticed, and the consequences would be swift and severe. Why would Messalina risk everything for such a dangerous gamble? Some historians believe she underestimated Claudius's ability to respond. For years, she had controlled him so effectively that she assumed his loyalty, and perhaps his ignorance was unshakable. But this time, she miscalculated. Claudius's advisors, eager to see Messalina fall, seized the opportunity to turn him against her. They painted her marriage as treason, an act that endangered not only Claudius, but the stability of the entire empire. Claudius's response was immediate and uncharacteristically decisive. Messalina, once untouchable, became an outlaw overnight. Soldiers were dispatched to bring her to justice, and her allies abandoned her, unwilling to share in her downfall. It's said that when the end came, Messalina begged for mercy, not for herself, but for her children. Whether out of fear or pride, Claudius refused to see her, leaving the execution to others. The woman who had ruled from the shadows met her fate in a lonely garden, far from the grandeur of the imperial palace. Messalina's death sent shockwaves through Rome, but the real question was why she risked so much in the first place. Was she blinded by ambition, or was there something more? Something hidden beneath the surface that history has yet to reveal? And perhaps even more importantly, what were the consequences of her fall for the empire she once sought to control? Messalina's downfall marked the end of an era, but its ripples stretched far beyond her death. Her fall exposed the fragility of Rome's political system and the dangerous instability lurking within the imperial court. Claudius, once seen as weak and indecisive, emerged stronger, but at a cost. The emperor's newfound resolve came at the expense of trust. No one within the palace walls would forget how quickly Messalina had risen, and how brutally she had been brought down. More than that, her story became a warning. The Roman elite now had a vivid reminder of what happened to those who reached too high, especially women. Messalina's actions were rewritten as cautionary tales of excess, treachery, and ambition. Her enemies ensured that her legacy was shaped by scandal, reducing her to little more than a villainous figure in history's eyes. But was this fair? Was Messalina truly the monster her detractors claimed, or a scapegoat for a world that refused to tolerate powerful women? Messalina's death also left a void in the imperial court that no one could easily fill. Her political maneuvering, though ruthless, had kept Rome's many factions in check. Without her, the balance of power shifted, and new threats emerged to challenge Claudius's reign. In some ways, Rome needed figures like Messalina, individuals willing to navigate the chaos and take risks others wouldn't dare. But Rome was also a city that punished those it needed the most. Messalina's story is a complex one, full of ambition, betrayal, and consequences. But her fate raises a larger question. How many other stories from history have been twisted by those in power? And what truths still lie buried beneath centuries of myth? If you found Messalina's rise and fall intriguing, you'll definitely want to see how Germanicus navigated his own dangerous crossroads. In a moment when rebellion threatened to tear Rome apart, Germanicus faced the ultimate test of loyalty and ambition. What choice did he make when soldiers offered him the imperial crown? Click here to dive into the story of the mutiny that nearly shook Rome to its core and discover the leadership decisions that saved the empire. You won't want to miss this.